Hi, I'm Joel Bloom, president of New Jersey Institute of Technology. At NJIT, we believe that not only our students, but all citizens need to be informed about the issues facing higher education. As New Jersey's Science and Technology University, NJIT is proud to support the important programming produced by the CAUCUS Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, Holy Name Medical Center in Teaneck, New Jersey. Healing begins here. QUALCARE, Inc., a managed care company administrating health plans that care about your health care. New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation. The Russell Berry Foundation, Suez, ready for the resource revolution. And by NJM Insurance Group.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this. You got this?
Here it is, man. Look at that.
Life without dance is boring.
I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are, there is always something to learn.
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No.
People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Steve Adubato from the Tisch WNET studio here in the heart of New York City. It is great to welcome back, by popular demand, my good friend Joy Ann Reid, host of MSNBC's AM Joy, every Saturday and Sunday from 10 to
noon.
You love that gig?
I love it.
Because?
Well, I love my team, first of all. We just have an amazing team. We have a majority woman team.
So do we have that here, too. By the way, to all the guys on the team here, we have a majority female team. Is that?
We value our guys, too. But we just have a great team. It's really diverse. It's ethnically diverse. It's, diverse in terms of gender and sexual orientation. It's just a really great little microcosm of America, a lot of really great young producers. So I love that. I love working with them. And I just love the opportunity to have that platform to talk about the things I care about, politics and policy, and to do it with enough time. That 2 hours is fabulous. And even it always often seems too short. Our biggest problem is that we can't fit enough content into the 2 hours a day.
Let's do this. We always disclose when we are taping. We're taping it during the holidays of 2017. It'll be seen after. We don't know. We don't know. We don't even know the next day. Describe the relationship that you see, which you've talked about extensively, and I've been on with you to talk about this as well, the relationship between the media and the president / the White House.
There is no relationship. And I think this is unusual in the sense that whether there have been Republican presidents or Democratic presidents in office, the relationship with the media has been either good or bad, but there's been a relationship. What you have right now, for the first time in memory, in modern memory, is a president who sees himself as an opponent of the media. He doesn't see the media as being valid unless it is affirming him. And so only media that is personally affirming and praising him is valid in his opinion. And so what he's done with the rest of us is to say, you are illegitimate, full stop.
Fake news.
You're fake news. And until you come around and begin to cover me with praise and adulation, I will continue to tell my third of the American public that follow me that you are invalid, and that when I send my spokesman out to talk to you, they can be dismissive of you, they can lie to you, they can force you to do exercises like tell them what you're grateful for. They can treat you like children because you don't matter. You're invalid unless you are affirming me.
We just had, right before you came in here, you know this, Ken Kurson, the former editor of the New York Observer, who is a strong supporter of the president, argued that we, in the media by and large, are making consistent mistakes, not because we make mistakes, but because we intend to make those mistakes to make this president look bad, because we are still upset about the results of the 2016 election, you say?
I say that anyone...
Because I know you saw that interview.
Absolutely, and it was interesting to watch what he had to say. But here's the problem. I come at it from a completely different perspective. We're not upset enough about what happened in the last election. And I say that to say that what happened in the 2016 election is unprecedented in American history. When you have agents of a foreign power interfering in the results of an American election. Russia actively inserting itself into an American election.
While the investigation continues, keep talking.
Right, and then you have the result of that be a president who is in every way appearing to act in the interest of that same country, of Russia. The media, in my opinion, is erring on the side of trying to ignore that, put that in one compartment, report on it every day, but compartmentalize it from the actual presidency. My problem is that you have to have a link between this thing and this thing. Yes, you aggressively report on the Russia investigation. It's very critical, including the fact that the current administration isn't investigating Russia. Right at the administrative side, they're not interested in what happened in the last election. They benefited from it, so they're not interested in it. They're trying, if anything, to thwart the investigation that Congress and Robert Mueller are doing. The media is attempting to do two things: cover that investigation, but also fit Donald Trump into normal, to fit this presidency, which is abnormal in its inception, into normal, and to force him to seem like a normal president.
So because we're taping when we're taping, I'll put you in an awkward spot. 6 months from now, this show repeats. Will what you just said seem out of date or more relevant than ever?
It depends on how the media behaves. I think that journalists have a real challenge. They're used to covering presidents from a point of view of process. Did the president's bill get passed? Does the president have allies on Capitol Hill?
Isn't that our job?
That is our job. But when you have something so sui generis as what happened with Russia, what happened in that election, the uncomfortable question of the legitimacy of the administration is something we don't want to discuss. But how can we not? How can the American people not discuss some of the aberrations of this president's, the way he's behaving, the sort of attitudinal aberrations of him, the anti-democratic impulses, the autocratic impulses? These are things Americans aren't used to. You don't mean
anti-democratic
with a small d.
Got it.
Right. And I mean, I think because we don't have an international perspective to understand what a Mubarak was like, what a Mobutu Sese Seko was like, what a...
you going to put Trump in that category?
Or Berlusconi. Personality-wise, I would, because...
Berlusconi in Italy.
Berlusconi in Italy. You know, I spoke with Trevor Noah. I had my class on The Daily Show, and we talked about the fact that South Africans look at Donald Trump and see something that they've seen before on the continent. And he's from South Africa. If you're on the African continent, you see a range of sort of, dictatorial, autocratic, some democratic leaders. But you see in that range people like Donald Trump. Americans have only seen typical American presidents who operate in a mostly typical way. Donald Trump is an aberration. He's more like these international leaders. He is more Berlusconi than he is Eisenhower.
The other thing about your show that I've always enjoyed, difficult, sensitive, cultural issues are put on the table as well. Again, we will date ourselves, but the issue is not going away anytime soon. Now, I'm going to frame this. We had Chris Cuomo on, and Chris didn't like the way I framed this. I called it sexual misconduct. And now there's a whole range of permutations of this. In the media, and literally today as we're going on the program, things have changed and some people have been let go. Where are we with this, and where do you think we're going?
It's hard to say where we're going, because I think that
Where are we?
Yeah, I think where we are is that women feel empowered to speak out. And the more women who speak out, the more women who were in the shadows suffering feel that they can come forward. But I think that sexual misconduct is a blanket that's being thrown over everything. And I've said on my show, I've said before, I've said to friends, that when everything is the same, then nothing matters, right? If there's no distinction and no discernment between things, then nothing matters.
As we do this program, sorry for interrupting, Joy, as we do this program, we do not know what's going to happen in the Roy Moore race.
Sure.
Right? But it matters. Whether if he becomes a senator.
Yeah.
Those issues of allegations on the part of many women that he dated underage, not the same as a whole range of other situations?
Exactly. And I think that, I think a lot of people chafe at the term sexual misconduct because it doesn't allow each individual story to be told. There are some people who are suffering in terms of sexual harassment, which is its own bad thing that has its own repercussions for the psychological health and the emotional health and the career health of a woman. And then on the other end, you have people who are alleging sexual assault or alleging sexual predation. And then all the way at the far end of it, you have Roy Moore, who is accused of essentially child molestation. And if people, I think particularly on the right, I'll say, try to say this person who's accused of alleged child molestation and predation against children, and Al Franken, who is accused of inappropriate behavior that is itself heinous too, but they're the same. They are exactly the same. Then nothing matters. And I think we've gotten into a culture where between fake news and nothing matters, we've stopped caring about the individual hurt and pain of people, and we've stopped analyzing it, I think, in a specific enough way to make a difference.
You know, Joy, it's so interesting to me because you lean a certain way politically.
I do.
I do wonder sometimes, because I heard what you said about, you know, we all just heard what you said about Republicans who may tend to make excuses or minimize. You don't think the same thing is true for Democrats and so-called progressives who want to make excuses for those who happen to have the same political ideology and have been helpful to them in one way or another, who've done some horrible things? Isn't it the same?
I think there is some tendency in all human nature to do it. Of course, Democrats do it as well. That you want to keep this person because they're good on policy. They're good for my policy priorities.
At what cost?
Right, so I want to keep them. But I have to tell you, the one difference that I will give, and the benefit of the doubt, is that at least Democrats agonize over it. You see the public agonizing of Democrats over it, and the pushing out of some of their members. John Conyers is going to leave
As we do this
Congress.
program, he's leaving.
And ironically enough, despite the fact that, you know, this allegation that came against him, and I think there's more than one at this point, and these women are now coming forward and talking about him. You know, the origin of that story was that it was outed by a really pretty venal figure on the right who is now hunting people on the left. And no, it doesn't matter what the origin is, but at the same time, I see Democrats agonizing over what to do with Al Franken.
Republicans?
I don't see Republicans. I see them running from the microphones or just supporting Roy Moore. And I don't see very much beyond saying, what is the right answer to get us to power?
In the limited time we have left, I asked you this last time you were here. I'm going to do it again. The silver lining, such a lame question. Where do you see, if there is such a thing as a silver lining, that we could potentially begin to talk to each other in a more meaningful way without the name calling, the vitriolic, nasty, or am I just delusional?
No, you're not delusional, Steve. I call myself a sort of sunny pessimist. I'm quite pessimistic about where the country's going, to be honest with you. I think we have schism. I think we have real ideological schism. I just came from the Public Religion Research Institute's annual release of their big poll that shows two countries that are so far apart, so polar opposites, that you really almost have to describe it being two Americas at war with one another ideologically and with almost nothing in common. But I do think that at some point, particularly since you're seeing a growing coalition of what you call never Trump Republicans and Democrats, that some core group of people on the two sides of the normal ideological aisle, not the extremes, but people who are generally in the center left and center right, have got to start grappling with this question of what to do with the millions of people whose profession is moving into obsolescence. Meaning, what do we do with people whose identity is that I am a manufacturing person, I am a miner, I am a welder, I am a truck driver. And on the horizon is obsolescence because of automation or because of, it's not because of immigration, by the way, it's mainly because of mechanization and globalization. If we don't start having that conversation, and we're not having it on a serious level with serious thinkers, if you think the nationalism and the vitriol is bad now, wait till that happens.
By the way, check out, I wish I had a whole half hour to talk to Joy. Check out Joy's program, AM Joy, Saturdays, Sundays, 10 to noon. I look forward to being back with you again. But also on Twitter, I'm approaching like 11, 12,000 on Twitter,
I'll give you
which is embarrassing compared to you. What do you got?
I have 980,000. I'm 20 away. I'm so close to 1 million, so close.
You just made me feel embarrassed, but that was not your intent.
I'll give you a follow back Friday. I could probably get you 10, 12 people out of it. That'd be great.
Thank you, partner.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Be right back right after this.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We are honored in the public broadcasting family to welcome one of the most compelling journalists out there today, Matt Taibbi, contributing editor of Rolling Stone, the author of this book, I Can't Breathe, A Killing on Bay Street. It's the story of Eric Garner and a video that we can never forget and should never forget. Who was Eric Garner? Why does he matter so much more today than ever?
Eric Garner was an interesting, funny, complicated, flawed, much-loved person. You know, I started to be interested in his story most intensely after the decision by the grand jury to not indict the police officer.
Let's set it up again. Physically, where are we talking about? This happened on
Staten Island. Yeah, Eric Garner was the man who was.
He was selling cigarettes.
He was allegedly selling loose cigarettes. and he got into a confrontation with police, and they applied a chokehold, and he was killed in the incident.
What did he keep saying over and over again?
He said, "I can't breathe," 11 times, and nonetheless they kept subduing him. He died in the encounter. The video, the entire episode was recorded, and it was really...
by bystanders on the street, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, by bystanders. In particular, one man named Ramsey Orta, who's now in prison. And the fact that the whole thing was recorded became a kind of a seminal event in the history of the internet and the history of America's relationship to how it understands police brutality. And it was the first in a series of incidents, including people like Freddie Gray and Michael Brown, that sort of drew public attention to this case, to this problem.
Why did you jump into this? By the way, we've done so many programs connected to the complex set of issues dealing with police and the minority community, and we talk to a whole range of law enforcement professionals. We talk to folks who see things somewhat differently as some in the law enforcement community.
Sure.
What drew you to this?
Just out of curiosity, on the day after the grand jury decided not to indict the police officer in question, I drove out to Staten Island. I don't live that far from there, and I just started to talk to people on the street about...
That was a grand jury from the community?
Yeah, from the community.
Which
absolutely.
matters.
Which matters, yeah. And I started to talk to people on the street about Eric Garner, and he just seemed like an interesting person. And one of the things that, as a journalist, that disappoints me about some of these cases is that you never get to learn about who the people are. In a way, like their humanity is kind of robbed of them a second time because they're instantly capsulized and caricaturized in news stories. He's a Lucy dealer, he's a small-time thief, he's an X, Y, or a Z.
Yes.
We never get to know the whole person.
Put him in a box.
Exactly. And so I decided to kind of work backwards, find out who he was first and then work up to the incident and why it happened.
Describe his family.
He had 5 children, and he was very devoted to his kids. That was like the chief fact of his life. He was in very ill health. He had a lot of problems.
Asthma?
Asthma and diabetes.
He's a big guy.
He was a big guy, 6'3", 350 pounds. He had done time for crack dealing, so he had a very hard time getting a square job. And this selling loose cigarettes was really the only way he could make money. And he was out there grinding 7 days a week. But almost every dollar that he made went to his kids. And in fact, he was known for not buying new clothes for himself because he spent it all on his kids. There were a lot of interesting quirks like that about his personality.
You know, when I think back on the video, and the book is about so much more than the video, but the video speaks so loudly. Many of us, not all, but many of us thought we were seeing what we thought we were seeing, which was a very large man, Eric Garner, being taken down and choked out by a chokehold, as I understand it. Matt, if I'm wrong, you'll tell me, is actually illegal.
It's banned.
I apologize.
Right,
It is banned.
Right, yeah.
And that is a certain kind of chokehold because it is so lethal.
Right.
But it was used.
Right. And even the commissioner said it was a chokehold.
The commissioner of the police department here.
Yes.
What was the debate?
Well, that's what the big mystery is about. I mean, if you talk to a lot of lawyers, and I talked to a lot of lawyers for this book, they said that normally you would just have to go in and show that it was a chokehold, that it was a banned procedure, that show the tape, or maybe bring in a couple of witnesses, and there you have your prima facie case for an indictment for some kind of charge.
On the face of it.
On the face of it. But instead, there was a very lengthy grand jury investigation, and what they were talking about is kind of a mystery, because really those are really the two facts. They used the banned procedure, the man died. What else is there to talk about? So that's really why in the community there was so much outrage about this case in particular. That and the fact that one of the first things I found out when I looked into this is that he wasn't actually selling cigarettes that day.
But he had in the past.
He had in the day. No question that is what he did for a living.
What does that have to do with choking him out?
Well, it explains a lot of his reaction on the tape. If you watch the tape, he's mystified in the tape because he can't understand why he's being brought in now, and also why the police had ignored a fight that had just happened on the street right in front of him. So that fed into his reaction to the police and his refusal to go in.
Did the police ever say that they did anything wrong?
No, and they also never said that he did anything wrong either. They very specifically said in their statements that he was approached in connection with selling cigarettes.
You know, Matt, let me try to broaden this discussion because you've also written extensively about Trump, President Trump. Your other book?
Insane Clown President.
Not the Insane Clown Posse.
No.
I'm sorry for my digression. To what degree do you see any connection between the Eric Garner case and the public reaction to it? When I say public, I mean multiple publics reacting in multiple ways, and the 2016 presidential election and its outcome?
I think there was a connection. I mean, it's not absolutely direct, but if you talk to a lot of Trump supporters, which I did because I covered the presidential election during the same time I was writing this book. For
Rolling Stone.
For Rolling Stone, yeah. There was a lot of backlash politics. There was a lot.
Define backlash politics. Backlash by whom? Against what?
No, there was sentiment out there among Republican voters that the Black Lives Matter movement was completely
it was anti-cop.
Anti-cop. That Eric Garner it was his own fault that he died because he should have just gotten in the car. That police brutality is an overblown issue, and Donald Trump, of course, fed into a lot of this.
Donald Trump, at one point, I remember he said, I'm not sure exactly when the period was, but he said to cops, if you're in fact putting a perpetrator or alleged perpetrator in the car, what did he say? He said,
basically give them an extra shove and bounce their heads off the
and the
roof.
Audience that was there.
Yeah, they cheered. They applauded.
What does this have to do with this case in your mind?
Well, I think
is it ultimately about race?
Of course, it's about race.
How so?
Well, I mean, in the Garner case, a lot of it had to do with the fact that the policing techniques employed that targeted small-time criminals like him are employed very heavily on the borders of white and black neighborhoods, and these sort of broken windows policing techniques, which a lot of police officers.
Broken windows, the smallest crime you go after because if you don't, bigger things will happen. Good.
Exactly, and I talk to a lot of law enforcement officers who don't like these policies, but if you watch the way they're employed, these sort of regular stops of people, they're employed on these border areas, and they keep white and black neighborhoods separate. And I think a lot of the tension in the Garner case was that he was doing what he did across the street from a big, rich condominium complex that was being built up, and otherwise the police would never have been interested in him. And I think all these racial issues played a huge role obviously in the 2016 election, and
you're fascinated by race. You write about it. You're fascinated. By the way, your family, have any family history connected to journalism?
Yes, my father was a reporter here for ages.
Your father co-wrote one of the most incredible books ever. Tell everyone. I think it was 1984 that the book came out. I could be wrong.
Right. It was about the Tawana Brawley case. Yeah.
Race then, race now.
Yeah.
You're fascinated by. Well, let me ask it this way: do you believe that we have any ability to make any meaningful progress in talking about and dealing with race?
I do believe that, and I actually, in most of my career, I haven't really gone after this subject very much. In fact, I was late. I covered Wall Street for 8 years and the subprime mortgage crisis, and I kind of missed the racial aspect of that until the very end of the period when I covered that. So, but I think that there are concrete things that you can do, like in the case of these police brutality issues, you could change the way you do policing. You could do body cameras, raise better awareness, do better training. There are things that you can do. The larger problem of racism and the fact that America is still so segregated, that's a much bigger and thornier question.
I can ask this before you get out of here. You ready? Trump and the media today, are we doing enough? I know there's so many we's. We're public broadcasting. Right. We do it as you do. We also had Chris Matthews in here today. Chris Cuomo, Joy Reid's coming on as well. We have some other reporters. There's so many of us. We're not all the same, monolithic, right?
Right.
Overall, do we do a good enough job challenging and speaking truth to power by challenging those in power, particularly the president?
I think we do. I think, and I also don't think it's bad that we are back on the outside. When Trump first started talking about banning people from the White House press room. And I heard a lot of sort of complaining within, the community of journalists. Oh, that's awful. He shouldn't do that to us. But we should be on the outside as journalists. We should get used to the position of being adversarial to power.
Really, that's our job.
I think
just
yes.
To ask questions and.
Yeah, no, I think we should be on the outside. Our job is to be a check on power, not be on the plane and hanging out with people. I mean, I think that's how we got
access overrated?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that people reacted to in the campaign is this idea that the press and people in Washington are too cozy. And Trump took advantage of that sentiment. And I think it's maybe a good thing for us to get back to this sort of more adversarial
You don't care about being popular, do you?
Well, as a reporter, if you can't care about it. I mean, if you do, you're probably in the wrong profession.
You can't do your job.
Exactly.
Check out this book. It is called I Can't Breathe, Killing on Bay Street over in Staten Island. The Eric Garner story is important for so many reasons. Matt Taibbi, I want to thank you for joining us here on Public Television.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Anytime.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by NJIT, Holy Name Medical Center in Teaneck, New Jersey, QUALCARE Inc., New Jersey Sharing Network, the Russell Berry Foundation, Suez, and by NJM Insurance Group. Promotional support provided by NJ.com, Small News, Big News, True Jersey, and by HipNewJersey.com. Live hard, work hard, play hard. You're from New Jersey, and so are we. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
Do you know someone who's done something extraordinary for others, whether a community service or an act of heroism? That person may be a candidate for the Raspberry Award for making a difference. Help us pay it forward by honoring New Jersey's unsung heroes in their efforts to make a difference in the lives of others.
The deadline for nominations is Friday, February 16th.